Alrighty, everyone, welcome back. It's time for another run for the Team Velocity Marathon. Up now, we have the Super Mario Galaxy 2 80% run done by SuperViperT302. That's about it for me. Viper, anything you want to say before the run gets started?
Don't worry about why the game is in Japanese. I'll get into that in a little bit. But, this should be a pretty chill run. So, are we good for a countdown?
I think we are.
All right, let's go in 3, 2, 1, video games.
Video games.
So, if you've never seen a speedrun of either of the Galaxy games before, they function very similarly to each other in terms of go about beating the game. They're very similar to Essence and Core, and to collect a certain stars. In this game, I need to unlock Bowser's Galaxy Generator in World 6, which requires 70 stars. And so that's just going to be kind of the basis of this run, is getting the fastest 70 available stars, and then I have to beat Bowser's Galaxy Generator in order to actually... So it's, in essence, like a 70. And we start off with about, 2.5 minutes of intro. There's this little prologue section. And now we have the ability to spin because the Luma's cat. Spinning basically just lets you the game. And now I actually have the first trick of the run coming up here. Alright, there we go, I got it. So when you land on slopes like that with a high amount of speed and jump within the first, you can initiate a boost, which does kind of speed you up a little bit. Unlike Galaxy 1, you actually climb up in this game, but you can get those slope boosts off of them, and you'll see that extra. So here it's just going to be kind of mashing through a bunch of text boxes. This game does have quite a bit of downtime, especially more so early on. Most of the downtime is in stars, but the actual gameplay in terms of the stars themselves hurts. So coming up, there's potential for me to get a ticket here. So what I'm going to do, so there's this, on the second set of text boxes when I reach these Lumas, there's normally 5 text boxes that are supposed to display. If I waste a few frames on the first 2 and then either get the third or fourth one frame perfect, I can skip either 1 or 2 text boxes. Alright, I didn't get any there, but it does rely on a frame perfect input and 60 frames per second. Nothing too special. And it's highly unlikely that anyways, I wasn't really going for it, but you just kind of mash through. And now we're going to be heading off into the first actual star of the run. This is going to be Sky Station 1, aka Sky Station's first. And it's going to get pretty action-packed right from the get-go. So, sort of the core mechanic of spinning. Oh, first of all, I'm going to stand still after this Luma's done talking to me, so that its cutscene ends. This cutscene ends about half a second sooner. So kind of the core mechanic of spinning is that it allows you to get more height out of it, which actually turns out to be really, really broken, because you can just scale super high walls like this, especially if you have jump or wall jump. For example, here's a little wall scale right here. And we have a really cool here. So that's called Luma Bounce. So I did a homing ground pound off of that Luma to bounce backwards off of it. And since you have momentum going backwards in this game as opposed to forwards momentum, I was able to carry that one over to that planet where it's launch star normally. That only saves 1 second, and if you screw it up, you die. But it's at the beginning of very hard. So it's worth showing off. And that big coin I grabbed on that planet, that's a comet medal. There's one of those in every single galaxy, and I'm going to want to grab those if I can. And I'll explain what those are. Now we're actually heading off the first fight of the game. And normally to defeat Kiwi Piranha, I need to spin out his shell about 2 or 3 times. But you can just ground pound the whole thing at once. And that shatters. Alright, that was a pretty good first. That first hit's actually a little bit harder to get than the second hit, because on the second hit, it's away a lot. So that is the first star out of 71. And again, like I said, most of the downtime in this run is actually going to be in the stars, especially during the early portion of the game when all of the early game exposition be gotten out of the way. So I should probably explain why this game is in Japanese. I'm actually playing on the Japanese Virtual Console release of the game. And so text, you can scroll through text really quickly in this game by just holding A, but it scrolls even faster on the Japanese version. And we're not entirely sure how much time it saves, but it's somewhere on the order of like 20 to 30 seconds. It also, playing on Wii U, also saves a little bit of. And there's actually a method to get JP on any region of Wii U, so how I'm able to play it on it. It is still an official release of Galaxy. I'm just unregion locking. Anyway, I just kind of obviously since that text is, but basically that big fat fucking idiot. His name is Lubba, and this is Starship Mario, which is the game. And basically, anytime I'm on Starship Mario, my goal is to get to that yellow button to take me to the world map. Because there's really nothing on the Starship that allows you to actually make progress in the game. Our goal in this run is simply to get stars. Waste any other time doing it. So we're going to head back out into the world map, and we're actually going to go back to Sky Station and collect the second main mission, or Sky Station 2. After the purple idiot bothers us one more time. So Sky Station 2 is a little less action-packed than Sky Station 1, I would say, but there's still a lot of brilliant to show off. One thing I should probably mention is whenever I'm on these Star Select menus, I'm actually pointing my Wii Remote off screen and mashing A, and that will automatically select the first grayed out star in the menu, which is basically any star that hasn't been collected. There are some stars where I will have to manually put the screen. So at the start here, I have a pretty tight chomp cycle. I made it. And yet the movement on this planet might seem a little weird. You would think I should just do jumps here, but due to the gravity of this curved part of the planet, just doing a single jump there is actually. And on this planet, I actually want to have some pretty good movement because the elevators inside here are on cycles, and if I don't make any big mistakes, I can make a pretty timely route. So when you grab your first one-up in this game, you get that little text box. You can actually avoid getting the text box there, but it's pretty much unavoidable to get through this run without grabbing a single one-up, so you're basically guaranteed to grab it. So the fact that I grabbed it, you know. And the last couple planets of this star kind of speak for themselves, so I should talk about one of the more simplistic tech in this game, but definitely one of the more useful ones, landing cancels. So every time I land from a launch star, you'll probably notice the camera sort of twitch and you'll hear a little clicking noise like that. And that is me going into first person mode and exiting out of it as soon as possible, which allows Mario to move right away. Normally when you land from a launch star, there's like a short little second landing animation that has to take place. But by doing that, you can actually start moving right away. This saves about like 1 second every single time you do it. And since you take a lot of launch stars in this run, that ends up being really, really useful. There is actually a second way to cancel landing animation. And that's that you have, in most circumstances, you have a 1 to 2 frame window to jump out of the landing animation. But since this is basically frame perfect and 60 frames per second, you're not going to be seeing for it often, except for when initial fly-in into the galaxy. You can't control. So now I'm actually going to move forward and roll a little bit. We're going to head to Star Galaxy. So if you have never seen a speedrun of this game before, or even if you just have never heard about any glitches in this game before, you're in for a real treat. because Yoshi is the most broken part about this entire game. There is a rather famous exploit you can do with him here called infinite fluttering, and you'll get to see that in action. And I'm actually going to be using infinite fluttering for a skip on this star that saves roughly 20 seconds if you get it first try, but it loses about 45 if you miss it and die. So it's sort of a high risk low reward thing, but there's a pretty good setup. And I'll explain infinite fluttering. You'll get a nice deck. This skip is still a little bit. Okay. So, normally when you flutter on Yoshi in this game, there's a short little cooldown that has to take place between flutters, so you can't just chain flutters like that. But you're able to crouch in midair, and this cancels both the flutter and that cooldown time, which allows you to immediately begin fluttering. Oh boy. I accidentally dropped the flutter there. The rhythm for infinite fluttering can be a little bit nicholsome, but we're good. Still made that cycle. You're probably wondering how I still made that cycle, and I'll get into it. Yeah, you can use infinite fluttering as you saw earlier on that planet to gain good amounts of height and access places you're not normally able to reach, and you can also gain an insane amount of distance and speed really quickly, because to get that level of speed, you have to like hold sideways and also be holding slightly in the... You have to be moving sideways while also holding slightly in the direction of Yoshi's back, but once you're in the air for longer than 10 seconds, your speed kind of just drops to a crawl, where you can only flutter extremely slowly forwards or side. And there's some workarounds for that, which I'll get into. You'll see a bunch of the workarounds through the run, because basically every time I get on Yoshi, probably going to be some kind of fluttery. Because even if I'm not going to use it to skip anything, it's just a super fast one. Although, there are times when infinite fluttering is really useful for skipping, because in Yoshi Star 1 I used it to skip one planet. Here I'm basically going to use it to skip the entire one, and just go straight to the boss planet as soon as I get on. This one has a bit of an awkward camera change in the middle of it, but other than this one is cool. It does save like massive, like somewhere. Nice. So, that one. Infinite fluttering is mostly just a matter of getting a rhythm for the timing down, and then learning what angles you need to hold. So this is Giga Like Heat 2. This is the second boss of the run, and this is the first really big pointer-based part of the run, so you better have a cooperative sensor bar, which thankfully I do. So, it varies from, but it seems to be fine. So I'm going to go for a setup for some fast kills here. And tongue both of these spinies once, and throw this first spiny at Giga Like Pichu, and then get that second one in Yoshi's mouth. And now I have this spiny stored for this third hit here, so I don't have to wait for him to shoot out anymore. I can just... That saves about, I'd say, somewhere between 8 seconds, probably. So getting that is really, really good. There we go. So early on in the run, we're pretty restricted as to what galaxies and stars we have access to, but as I go through the game, more worlds become unlocked, the game will become a lot less, and that will happen. My options will... But for now, we're just going to kind of trudge our way through World 1 and get... So now we're coming up on Spin Dig Galaxy, which is the first galaxy to introduce one of the actual power-ups in this game. And it's actually a power-up new to this game of or the first of many, and a spin drill. So when you have the spin drill and you're on the section of a planet that has dirt, you can dig through the dirt by spinning, and then end up on the other side of the planet, dirt there. And you're intended to use that quite a few times throughout this mission, but you can jump in this game, and Nintendo seemed to overlook that for most of these planets, so you can just kind of do stuff like that. And on this next planet, I'm going to utilize another homing ground pound to get some momentum off the spin drill. So a homing ground pound is this move. It's what you saw me bounce earlier. It's basically a spin followed immediately by a ground pound that will home in on the nearest item, and by doing it off that, so I'm going to jump into the corner of that pillar there, which allows me to kind of clip inside of it, and that just saves a few seconds of walking. This next planet kind of plays by itself because there's a Luma I have to wait for, so I'll actually talk about another thing that's important. Okay, I did not see that coming, but I'll actually talk about another thing that's important in this game, and that's actually coins and star bits. So you've probably noticed by now that I'm trying to avoid coins whenever possible, and I'm also spitting out star bits like any. And that's because if I have either in my inventory when I finish a level, then I get like 1 second text boxes for each. And with very few exceptions, that does leave. But there are some instances where I need star bits, such as here. Because you're supposed to talk to Captain Toad there, but by just going into that. And now we're off to fight Dig a Leg. So this boss is the first major instance of RNG in the run. It's usually not a huge deal, but it can make a difference of up to about like 50. So right here, Dig a Leg can either jump to the left or the right. I actually want him to jump on top of me, like that, because then he'll jump straight to the other side of the battlefield, and now he's going to a... And that was actually a perfect first phase, because you also want to keep those yellow Digga enemies alive, because then he won't try to spawn anymore. So I got bad RNG there. That was a bit of a sketchy second hit, but we made it work out. That was a pretty average Dig a Leg. Sometimes it's a lot better, sometimes it's a lot worse. You don't actually have to walk all the way to the star. Dig to it. A strange death that happened there, but it didn't cost me too. And this is the first of a few instances in the game. There are specific stars where the purple idiot, aka Bubba, actually takes you down to the bottom of the starship to see certain enemies get unlocked. And usually when you're down here, there is absolutely no purpose for it. It's just a way to make you waste time. So I'm just going to head back to the button. And that coin text box you saw where I counted down those 9 coins, those are the text boxes I'm trying to avoid throughout this. But sometimes they're unavoidable, like there are some stages where I can't avoid coins. I tried. Okay. So now we're heading off to Right Side Down Galaxy, where gravity can either be on the floor or the ceiling as the arrows. And this level has a fairly interesting concept. It's just that it is very broken, mostly just due to very convenient design. And you'll see what I mean here. So start on off here. I have to do a backflip here. Then so that lever there normally reverses the direction of gravity so that you can get through this section, but there's a conveniently placed item block right there that allows me to get all the gear. Or saves it. And there was another switch there. Oh, wow. And then here you're supposed to hit another gravity lever, but again, these elevators are placed right next to where you need to go. That was really, really sketchy. We made made it through all right. Now I got a pretty tough section to get through here, because I gotta break some of these boxes. I'm actually gonna try skipping some of them here. Okay, so I messed up my step there, so I had to bail on that one, but I'll go for it again. There we go. So that's actually pretty risky to go for, because if you get crushed in this game, regardless of how much health you have, you're automatic. So, obviously, if you mistime that there, the boxes will fall on you. And then here, I can just skip the entire rest of that section. There. You might think you're not supposed to be able to go out there, but you actually are, because there's actually one of the four corners of that area. It's kind of hilarious. Pretty entertaining level all throughout. So now I'm actually going to re-enter right side down to do the Galaxy's Secret or Hidden Star. And since there's no grayed out mission for it, I am actually going to have to manually point at the screen here, or just select it. But I can also skip these level intro cutscenes because I've already seen. This back up again, and then I'm just going to jump straight into this pipe instead of using the lever to reverse the direction of gravity, like that. And if you remember the trash blowing up minigames from Galaxy 1, this is actually a very, very similar concept, where I have to burn all these boxes with the fire flower a time. These are pretty hard to do casually, and even in speedrunning, they're really difficult to do optimally. Precise positions and so I got an 11 on the timer there, which is like okay. A really good time would be like a 13, and the best you can get, I believe, is a 14 or 15. But that's requires like perfect play. So as long as you get it, it's not a huge deal. So that's actually it for Right Side Down Galaxy. And now that I just got my 7th star, Lubba is going to introduce us to a very important character in this run. So I'm not going to spoil anything yet. Obviously, you can't understand what I'm saying in Japanese. But that Toad that just got introduced is going to come into... He's going to be very important in about a little over 15. So just keep him in mind. Now I'm going off to Fluffy Bluff Galaxy, where we get introduced to another, this time a rather fan-favorite power-up, the Cloud Flower. And I'm actually going to be doing Fluffy Bluff's Secret first, which requires me to collect 15 coins in order to beat, or not 15, 100 coins. Which is actually the biggest amount of coins required to feed one of those in this game, but there's kind of two obvious locations. I'm gonna long jump into this cloud flower here, which makes Mario face the camera, and then some backward direction. And here in this room, I have to get all these coins here. And if I let any of these timers expire, I have to abandon the car. So, be quick here. It's not too difficult. And I want to leave this room with exactly 60 coins, and the remaining 40 are up on the cloud robot. So while I'm getting these lines of coins, you're going to be seeing me kind of do these short little hops. Like that. And that actually does speed you up by a little bit, as opposed to thinking. You'll notice it accelerates a little bit when you'll see me do that a few times. So each of those 3 clouds represents a platform that I can make by shaking the Wii remote, that allows me to cross otherwise impossible distances otherwise. And there's a lot of really interesting cloud tech that can be used here, and you're going to be seeing me use a lot of it when I power. So I'm just going to kind of let this climb speak for itself. That was really good. So the first big piece of cloud tech to cover is actually you can cancel the cloud making animation by crouching as soon as you cloud, which not only allows you to move right away, but then you can also utilize the upwards bounce of the cloud that it gives you, because moving platforms in this game actually give your jumps inertia. So, for example, if a platform is moving upwards, then your jump will go a lot higher. And that's actually going to be heavily abused, not just from clouds, but also just throughout this run in general. There's a lot of moving platforms right now. There's also another really weird piece of cloud tech where if you're long jump from the center of a cloud as Cloud Mario while you're above it, you can actually gain a huge amount of horizontal speed. And I'm actually going to use that here in Fluffy Block 1 to do a massive skip. This is also one of the few galaxies where I won't be collecting metal. So you're obviously not supposed to be able to cross this gap, but with that weird floatiness aspect of Cloud Mario. And that's safe supposed to. And now we're going to see cloud boosted long jumps. So that's just again of using the upwards bounce of the cloud, where I make a cloud as I'm grounded, and then do a long jump, and the upwards bounce of the cloud gives my jump some added height. So in addition to the stars where you're brought down to the bottom of the starship, there are also some stars where you use a power-up, either for the first time or not, that take you to the engine room, where lava shows you the power-up, you're not going to use it or anything. This room is just completely useless, so as soon as this level's done here, and we're going to have to be brought down here if you... This movement back to the... back. With that, we are off to the first castle level of the run. So each of the 6 worlds in this run has a castle boss level at the end, where star, and they alternate between Bowser Jr. and Bowser levels, and they're usually pretty difficult. And this one is definitely a good kickstart to that concept. So the movement in this stage is quite tricky because I have to make a pretty tight cycle with the swamp, and it's very easy for a missed jump here to result in it. And jump onto this wall here. And then the gravity field of this planet is huge, so I can just kind of enter this and skip the level. That's also an exploit you're going to be seeing quite often. And now I'm going to fight Gobblegut, which is a giant dragon that has 6 bellyache bulges. You're supposed to attack the bellyache bulges by getting Gobblegut to basically the planet and attack them as they pass by, but you can't actually attack them. And with the strat I'm going to be doing here, you basically have to pull it off perfectly. So right here, I'm going to try to hit bulges 5, 6, and... It's good. And then for the second set of 3 hits, I'm going to run down and in a straight line, which will make Gobblegut follow me and get closer to it. And then right over here, I'm going to turn these last 3 back. That was a perfect Gobblegut. I made that fight look way easier than it actually is, because if one little thing goes wrong, then you basically have to guys, and that really costs you 20 seconds per mistake. But that ended up being really good. We do have to fight him again in this run, though. I actually have to fight him twice. So with that Grand Star, I am now actually able to move on to the next world, so that sort of marks the end of the World 1 segment. And grow comfortable with this, because you're going to have to see it after each of the first 5 worlds. Also, this will actually be a good time to mention. So you probably also noticed that there's a little time, like 139.06 in the lower right-hand corner there. That's actually the in-game time. So we do actually use that for counting ILs. It's also just really helpful to know how much time you lost or how you're doing to others.
Awesome. We got a moment for any topics with the marathon we're supporting, or the charity we're supporting?
You can probably say like one quick thing real quick.
Yeah. So I guess two very quick things to know. We are currently sitting at $198 raised, so only $2 more until we reach 200. So it'd be wonderful if anybody donated towards the marathon and the charity to help get that. Also, for the specific run, actually, at the end, we have an incentive to get the 242nd star of the game. So we're currently sitting at $15 out of 50. So we got another about 2.5 hours to get those donations in. So greatly appreciate it.
And you don't want to miss that.
Yeah.
Especially with the recent developments that have shined through on that star.
Definitely. And feel free to talk. Yeah, feel free to talk about it as much as you like to hype it up. So yeah.
Yeah. So here we're in Puzzle Playing Galaxy. I'm sure you all know this galaxy for its pretty popular. But in terms of speedrunning, this level is pretty straightforward. Right here, I'm going to actually skip a launch. I'm actually going to have to skip going to the bottom half of this planet by just backflipping up to the launch star like that. So one important thing that I don't think the game ever actually tells you about is that if you hold A while you're spinning, you actually gain a lot more height, which ends up being the deal breaker for some jumps. But also, weirdly, you can spin with both the Wii Remote and the Nunchuck in this game, and you actually spin higher if you use the Wii Remote as Mario. But if you're playing as Luigi, which you won't see me do at all in this, it's actually better to use the Nunchuck. Again, the game never tells you about this. There's basically no logical reason why they programmed it. And this planet is kind of weird at times because sometimes you can hit these puzzle pieces like that. You can hit these puzzle pieces more than one time with a single ground pound, which can save a little bit of time, but there's really no way to manipulate it into happening every single time. So it's essentially just random. I got pretty lucky there. And then here's a mini boss fight recycled from Galaxy 1. This game was actually intended to be a DLC for Galaxy 1. In fact, its internal name is actually Super Mario Galaxy 4, which I guess sort of makes sense. So I'm actually not going to be spending too much time in World 2 now, but there will be backtracking sessions later in this run. We'll have to come back to get some cleanup stars. So after this star, Lubba is actually going to introduce a very important aspect of this game to us, and that's the Grand World. So in addition to the individual world maps that allow you to go from galaxy to galaxy, the Grand World map actually allows you to go from world to world. So let's say I'm in World 4 and I want to go back to World 1. I can actually just zoom out here and then go straight from World 4 to World 1 without having to backtrack through every single individual world. And I'm not going to start world hopping until midway through 3, but it is important to now because it's going to be a huge player in the route. So now I'm in Hightail Falls Galaxy, where we get Yoshi back, but we're also going to be introduced to the first Yoshi power-up of the game, which is Dash Pepper. And when you have the Dash Pepper, Yoshi runs really, really fast, and for some reason that also can climb vertical walls because and the Dash Pepper's effects actually persist between launch stars, so I'm going to want to try to keep it for as long. So here's going to be the first big climb here. I'm going to be traveling on the left side here because there's an extra Dash Pepper here I can grab, which requires a very tight maneuver there. If you bonk on a wall head off Dash Pepper, you actually fall all the way down. Really, really sucks. That was worth it to extra Dash Pepper. And then here, I'm going to delay grabbing that Dash Pepper a little bit again. And now we have a very interesting infinite flutter. So by jumping off that platform as it's lowering while I still have Dash type of momentum, I'm able to convert that into forwards infinite fluttering momentum, and by holding specific angles, I can get all of it. So I got shake to make that common metal grab look. Rapid ending here. Boom. Okay, so there's another important piece of Yoshi tech I haven't quite talked about, and that's when you dismount off of Yoshi in this game, you actually maintain all the momentum you had going into the dismount. So that was that logic applied to dismounting off of Dash Yoshi while traveling up a real slope, which, as you can imagine, gives you a lot of height. And that's also what that's also one way I'll be extending some flutters past the 10-second limit, so that if I'm not able to quite make it with the 10-second limit without slowing down, then I'll dismount off of Yoshi a few extra seconds, which is a deal breaker for some. Now we're off to Cosmic Cone Galaxy. This galaxy is a bit more chill compared to some of the other ones, but what's really interesting here is actually crowding. So I'm gonna kind of go out of my way a little bit here to grab the Koopa Shell and some Star Bits. And I'm gonna use the Star Bits to kill these worm enemies so I can get coins. I need 15 coins to beat a Hungry Luma on this level, and I'm gonna need to do that twice. If I tried killing those worm enemies without shooting Star Bits at them first, I would just get Star Bits instead of That's all I need for that. So in Galaxy 1, you can actually, there's no cooldown between underwater spins, so you can spam them to go really fast. You actually can't do that in this game. They added a cooldown between spins, so using the shell for swimming is actually quite a bit better. It's around the same speed, but if not a little bit faster, and it's also better for. And you can also do these cool jumps out of the water. So this is actually a really interesting part of the route. So I went ahead and hit that switch to freeze the lake, but I'm gonna go ahead and feed these 15 points to this Hungry Luma. But I'm actually not going to take its launch star. I'm actually going to save that for later, and I'm just gonna go over and get the star on the waterfall. And then I'm gonna re-enter the secret star by itself. The skate long jump over here, which is actually a really fast. Breaking those crystals can sometimes be a little bit awkward, as you'll probably see at some point later in the run. And now we're coming up on a pretty important part of the run here. So I mentioned earlier that you normally point your Wii remote off screen to auto select not yet completed missions. I actually don't want to do that when I re-enter Cosmic Cove here, because then I'll accidentally select Cosmic Cove 2, and I won't have access to that launch star in Cosmic Cove, which means I'd have to sit through the level intro cutscene and then exit course and go back in. So I actually have to manually point at the screen and select Cosmic Cove. And that's actually a pretty easy. You would be surprised how many people forget to. And my sensor bar is screwed up, and I accidentally selected it. So that's fun. So this is the time loss from that. I seriously don't know what happened. So now you get to see why that's a bad thing. I'm just going to use the control stick. So here's what's supposed to happen. There we go. And I don't need to feed the Hungry Luma again in this star. And the launch star is just going to stay there. So I can just make a direct launch star here. And then this is the cooldown that I was talking about. You can't really do underwater spin. I'm going to be grabbing some star bits along the way here for very short. So if you remember the bunny missions from Galaxy 1, this is actually the only one in this game. And it goes by pretty quickly, but you can make it go by even quicker. Strat I'm gonna go for here. So, see what happens. So I was trying to shoot the bunny with star bits there, because then I would be able to skip having to hit that switch to freeze the lake, but I missed the first few shots. This run's really taking a hard slope, but you can catch the bunny. Otherwise, you have to hit the switch to freeze the lake if you don't do that, because otherwise you just can't catch the. What I was trying to do was get it to the wrong direction. Okay. So remember that toad I told you to keep in mind later? Well, he's actually going to come into play here, and that is another text that I was trying to. So this is the bank toad. So the way this works is you can deposit star bits into it from one file, and then withdraw these star bits into another file. So this is sort of like an NG plus sort of thing. But these are the star bits I'll be using for Hungry throughout the game. And this prevents me from having to actually collect star bits in any levels. And for any percent, I need roughly that. I'm gonna have to get it throughout. So you're probably wondering why I'm going out of my way to unlock Hungry Luma Galaxies, when there are a bunch of alternative stars I could collect. But actually, a lot of these Hungry Luma Galaxies actually provide really, really fast stars, so it's definitely unlocking them. And the same thing actually goes for comet medals, because some comet medals in galaxies are really far out of the way, but it's still worth getting them because the comet stars they unlock are real. And there isn't a better example of that, I feel, than this first mission I'm going to do in Honey Bloom, where there's a secret star literally right at the beginning of this level, and this is probably the fastest star in the game that isn't. I'm just going to kind of let the movement for itself. Definitely a worthwhile star to incorporate into the route. And here you're going to see an interesting overlapping of events on the starship. So because I just collected Honey Bloom secret, I'm brought down to the bottom of the starship in order to see the NPC. But I also just got 15 stars, which unlocks a letter from the mail toad for a star I'm not doing. So it's going to warp me straight from the bottom of the starship to the mail toad to get this letter. And that just saves a few seconds of travel time. So now I'm actually going to re-enter Honey Bloom and do Honey Bloom 1. We used to not think this star was fast enough to be in the route, and it kind of isn't, but doing this star actually allows for some world map optimizations that end up really paying off throughout the run. This entire level, though, is in 2D, so it's all really just about optimizing movement and avoiding possible, especially this upcoming is one of the harder ones. Here's the really simple part. So what I used there in order to skip having to use the from there is actually, if you land on a cloud without B Mario or Cloud Mario, normally it just doesn't you. But before it does, you have a 6-frame window to jump, and so that's what I was able to do. Unfortunately, here I have no choice but to Mario because I can't get. You can see it's very slow. I'll lose it right. It's getting through this full second. And then the rest of this level is just going to be kind of flying around with me. So if there's any more plugs or any donations to be, probably a good time to talk about here.
Cool. Yeah, I don't think we've talked about the charity actually in a little while. So, some background. The charity this marathon is supporting is RAD, excuse me, Rise Above the Disorder nonprofit campaign. It's giving people the ability to access mental health care via better access and better affordability. And their real mission and goal is to provide a universal mental health care system to people around the world. And, healthcare can be very expensive, so they want to make sure that people can afford that and get the help that they need. So we're working to help them change that through our donations. And some cool information is it's a smaller charity, but they've been able to help 37,000 people around the world. So, with our donations, we're actually making a pretty big difference overall. And so, yeah, thanks. And honestly, Viper, I'm going to say you've been saying you you mentioned how this run has a lot of downtime, and we're 45 minutes in, and I think this is the first time you've asked me for
there's a lot to explain in this run. Also, I probably should have mentioned that.
No, it's fine. It's better you explain it because actually, I only played Super Mario Galaxy 1 with the 3D All Stars pack, so I haven't ever had the chance to play Galaxy 2 myself. So this is a lot of the movement tech and everything is kind of throwing me for a little bit of a loop here.
Yeah, the two Galaxy games are very vastly different speed games in terms of how you want to approach them. This game is a lot more punishing, but also a lot more trick heavy, and revolves a lot more around consistency. So I think this level is another really example, just a bunch of tricks in a row that you're required to learn. So for example, right there, I skipped a 4-star by just long jumping into the gravity field. Here I decided to skip a sprint. And then here I'm actually going to be grabbing the life mushroom, which gives me 3 extra bars of health. And it's very important from this point onwards that I don't go below 4 health, because there's actually a skip at the end that requires me to have at least 4 health. Although that could happen right around here, because a lava boost skip here in order to avoid having to fight that hammer bro. Down here, and then hammer here to manipulate the lost movement up ahead. And then here's a really cool strat. I'm going to double jump into the lava, and then that actually scores a triple jump, which would have allowed for me to get a faster common knock out there, but the game behaved way more. Then lose 2. And now here comes the big skip that I needed for HP. So there's a couple of snake block auto scrollers that you're normally supposed to go up against, but you can actually skip both of them by just air boosting. So I'm going to do a little bounce on this first statue and then land in the lava again. Okay, that wasn't supposed to happen. Still made it work. So what was supposed to happen there is when you hit the lava and then bounce on the ground, you normally do the short little bounce before you can properly Mario. But if you land in the lava between the first and second land, the game will remember that the bounce happened, and then therefore the second time you land, you can control Mario. So I was supposed to land on the second statue and then immediately unlocked it, but I fell just a little. Luckily, collision in this game is weird, so I was easily able. And now we're off to the first Bowser fight of the run. So Bowser fights in this game aren't particularly interesting, or at least this first one isn't. They get a little bit more exciting as we go through. So basically the way these fights work is that Bowser summons a bunch of meteors by yelling, he punches the planet, and while he's trying to pull his fist out, you ground pound the meteors into him, and you have to do this a total of 4 times. In some of the later fights, there's some manipulation you can do to speed up, but this fight, for the most part, is bored. So I'm going to try to have Bowser punch as close to the meteor as possible, and then also ground pound the meteor at a good enough angle so that it doesn't take Bowser. Yeah, this fight is, again, pretty self-explanatory. For these 3rd and 4th hits, Bowser's going to breathe fire before he punches the planet, and I actually want to be paying attention to where this fire attack ends, because that will actually let me know where he's going to start aiming his second punch. and that allows me to get away. And as you just saw there, Bowser can punch out the meteors, so it's rare that he punches out the meteors in a way that prevents you from finishing him, but and also any missed hit or missed cycle on these fights is about 20 seconds lost, which at my level is a plus. So you want to avoid that as much as possible. But this fight is pretty easy to where you normally don't have to worry about that. And from here, we just have a bunch of dialogue and cutscene. World 2 segment. So if there's anything else you want to say, now would be a good time.
Yeah, nothing too major. As I mentioned before at the beginning of the run, we're sitting at just under $199, so we only need $1.10 actually to reach the $200 mark. So if anybody wants to flick this right over to that mark, that'd be great. But otherwise, great run so far, man. Like it's just been jam packed, like I said.
Yeah,
so much explaining to do.
About that Cosmic Hope secret stupidity, but other than that, I'm pretty alright with that.
Yeah, so I guess as somebody who really isn't super familiar with the, Galaxy games in general, and you said there's quite a bit of difference between Galaxy 1 and Galaxy 2, would you say really practicing for a run like this is more just about consistency or just like being good at tricks, I guess, at the end of the day and understanding?
Yeah, obviously movement is still an important factor, but what really separates the good players from the best is how well they can go through and how well you can keep your head the entire run. Like, I think we have for the longest time the leaderboards weren't super competitive, but in this past year especially, there's been a huge surge in competition, and a lot more people have gotten good at this game. We have 3 people with times under sub 3 hours, and a bunch of other people, myself included, who are really close to it.
That's awesome.
So now we're in World 3, which is where I would say the game really picks up in terms of difficulty. Mistakes here start becoming a lot more costly, and the strats in general just start becoming a lot more difficult and precise. So we're going to start off with Cloudy 1, where there's a lot more cloud boosting action, so miss that. You get to see more of how broken the Cloud Flower can be. So there's going to be 2 instances. One's coming up here where I'm going to do something called 4 Cloud Strats, or at least I call it that, where I'm going to Cloud Boost into this Cloud Flower, which replenishes my Cloud Stock, and then I can use the remaining 3 clouds to cross a distance. So I'm essentially using 4 clouds. And then you have to be facing that drum in order to grab off of it, and that allows me to put all 3 clouds here to actually skip that launch star and make it all the way to this flower. And so, normally when you spin in mid-air, you're not able to do another, actual spin, but you can still do, a wimpy spin, and that's still good enough to allow you to make it. And here we just have a 2D section. You have another 4 cloud strat coming here. Wall. And now we have some crushers coming up here. I'm going to try to one-cycle while also getting metal. Get time loss or get crushed and die, and go all the way back to the really, really bad. I ended up making it quite nice. So up next on the roster is Freezy Flake Secret, and this is where I actually get to have a little bit of fun with people in the chat. So, if you remember the chimp from Fluffy Bluff, I didn't really draw too much attention, but he shows up a few times throughout the game and challenges you to his high score by getting a certain amount of points within a time limit. And this is the first of those stars I'm going to be doing. And the minigame duration timer is fixed, so I can't stop the timer early by beating the high score, so I have to go until it's out. So, and it doesn't lose time to get as high of a score as possible. So if you want to guess what score I'm going to get, you need to guess anywhere between about 500 and 900 points, and only guess in multiples of 10. So scores like 730, 650, 540, stuff like that. And my rule, at least, is if no one gets it exactly right, whoever's closest wins, whether you're ahead or behind. So, the patterns you can get here. So, the patterns are technically the same every time, but they can be rotated one of 3 different ways. But once I know what rotation I'm on, it's fixed like that for the rest of the star. So I saw that the first Gummit appeared in the lower left-hand corner, and so now I have muscle memory essentially for that specific. So I have a clear path I can. The pattern's good. So. I'm skating backwards. If you press Z while you're skating, it allows you to skate backwards for some reason. It doesn't really have an effect on your controls. It's cool, so I do it out of that. So whoever gets closest to 780 would have won, and I see only one person guess, so they win by default. And congratulations on the satisfaction of winning.
That's all you need sometimes.
If you missed your chance, don't worry. There's going to be another opportunity later on where you'll get to guess it. And it's basically the exact same menu, so you're going to have a lot of fun with that. Okay, so I'm going to re-enter Freezy Flake now, and I'm actually going to do Freezy Flake 1. This star doesn't have a whole lot going for it, except for the fact that I'm actually going to be on a pretty strict time limit throughout most of this star because of the fire. So, basically, once I reach the second planet here, I'm surprised that hit. So once I grab this Fire Flower, I have until this Fire Flower runs out to make it all the way to the Common Metal and section, and you have like maybe a couple seconds. But fortunately, the movement here isn't. And missing this loses an insane amount. But we're good. Yeah, if I had missed that, I would have had to grab this Fire Flower, get the Common Medal, and then wait for the next Fire Flower to appear so that I can make it over here to this Bowser statue and blow it up. Because you just don't have enough time at that Fire Flower. Technically you do, but you don't want it. And yeah, you just Lava Boost to skip some platforming to blow up that Bowser statue. Okay, so here we're going to get a brief visit from Luigi. So because I just got 3 stars from World 3, from this point onwards you're going to start seeing Luigi appear at the start of various stars. And you can talk to him to switch to playing as him for that one mission. And Luigi does run faster and jump higher than Mario, but the problem is that it takes too much time to talk to him, both before the star, and you can only use him for that one star, and then he talks to you again afterwards before you switch back, so it would lose too much time for him for the amount of time it would say. So this entire run is going to be Mario only, which is nice because this speedrun is just better than Mario. Okay, so at the start of Honey Halls 1 here, I'm actually going to turn the camera a few times. And that's because in this game, most moving objects and platforms don't actually move if they're not on camera. And that actually includes the moving platforms at the start of this section. So I was manipulating the cycles of this moving platform and the one up ahead of it so that I could slightly faster platform cycle. It doesn't save that much time, and even with that, it's still good. Yeah, this is the cycle. So those 2 platforms are actually cycle-based. This platform and the next one actually start moving when you enter a certain zone. zone, so they're actually not cycles. And you can also skip having to wait on most of them. And then the Kama Metal doesn't, the platform with the Kama Metal here doesn't always move, but if you get through here on the same pace, it will be the same. Okay, that was, I turned around in a very weird way there. Since I didn't grab the checkpoint, that means I have to redo all of that. That's the risk of going, is that you don't have a checkpoint. In this game, you have to actually grab physical checkpoint. So now my cycles here are going to be a little bit different. I didn't get to watch. So now the cycles work out to where I can grab. It's kind of inconvenient. Turning around in this game can be really weird. So I don't know what exactly it is. So let's try that again. So that was probably a good example of what I meant by some platforms are cycle based and others. You probably noticed I got to those platforms. That was what was supposed to happen. I don't know why Mario turned around. Now we're in this section where I get Yoshi, so you can probably get. And then this is the Bolt Berry. It eliminates floors underneath you that otherwise don't exist. You don't really need it there, I just grabbed it for safety. But there will be times and points later where I do. And another very important thing just happened, and that's actually that I got my 4th star from. So now comets are actually going to start appearing. So those comet medals I've been collecting throughout the run are going to start allowing these comets. And I'm going to be kind of letting them build up throughout the run while I collect some more stars. And then there's going to be several cleanup sessions. So I'm going to re-enter Honey Halls, and we're going to do Honey Halls 2 now. And this star is, if you've never seen a speedrun of the Galaxy games before, but you've played them, this is probably what you imagine the run is like. It's literally just a bunch of log jumps. And this level, even though I make it sound like that, it is actually a bit more difficult than you might expect. Because mostly because optimizing long jumps in this game actually requires a fair amount of precision. So you want to press A and Z or Z and A rather at around the same time in order to not lose too much momentum from a long jump. And you can turn slightly between long jumps, but when you're chaining them, it's actually better to start on a long jump like this. So if you notice, Mario does like a little crouch animation before he does the long jump, and then he begins running again, then he kind of pauses for a little bit before he gets back up to full speed, whereas otherwise he doesn't accelerate. And that's something very important. And then also when you're chaining long jumps like this, the sooner you press A, the less speed. It doesn't usually make too much of a difference, but you can easily tell what runners are and aren't. Pretty straightforward level. Literally. Okay. So we got a couple of Hungry Luma Galaxies to do in a row now. I'm actually going to start with the one in World 3, which is going to be Block Galaxy. This Hungry Luma is kind of weird, because for some reason the very last star bit always shoots out later than the rest. It's one of 2 Hungry Lumas in the game like that, but the other one this run. So, also, something I'm doing while I'm beating the Hungry Lumas is, as I'm talking to them, I'm actually going to be holding the B button that shoots out star bits. So that way, once the text boxes are cleared, I will only start shooting star bits if I'm pointing at the Hungry Luma. Which just makes it easy. And then that was that last star bit you saw that just shot out later than the rest. So Beat Block has these yellow and blocks that switch off every 8 minutes of the song, which also makes this a very cycle-based level. even though it's also just a bunch of long jumps. And making the fastest RTA cycle here is pretty tight, and messing it up basically means you have to improvise. Hopefully, I can make it a fashion. I actually, although in saying that, I actually do want to play it a little bit slow at the start here, because I don't want to get caught on the blocks at the head. I don't want to get caught. But now I have to kind of haul it. And then here I have some silver stars to collect. I still have to stay on the cycle, though. That ended up going pretty well. So I made the right cycles there. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to begin my first cleanup session of the run. So with the stars I'm going to be getting in this first trip to World 3, I don't have quite enough stars to unlock Bowser Jr.'s Fearsome Fleet in order to progress. So I'm actually going to go back to World 1, get some stars that I couldn't get earlier, either because they were comets or I didn't get to them. And to make it back to World 1, I'm actually going to use the Grand World map. I zoom out, I just go straight from World 1. So I'm going to start off with another Hunger Luma Galaxy. This time I'm going to be Flip Swap. And this galaxy has another pretty weird gimmick about it, where it has these red and blue platforms, and they switch off every single time you spin, so casually you have to keep track of where you're spinning so you don't screw yourself over. But the interesting thing is that the platforms sort of rise up as they're switching, and so if you jump off of them as they're doing that, you get an insane amount of inertia at jumps. So you're going to be seeing me go for a lot of these throughout the level to fly over certain segments. And they do save small amounts of time from there, but they are rather tricky, and if you put them up, it is super easy to die, especially if it's first here, so hopefully I get it right. This first one's probably the... I'm just kind of go throughout the level. The second one's also a little... And another thing you saw me do is there you can actually cancel a spin with a regular jump or a long jump, which allows you to split these platforms without losing them. Right there. I'm actually going to use that here to try to get a mini super jump off of this platform. There we go. And that was a perfect flip swap. Well, not perfect, but I got all the super jumps and didn't die, so that's basically about as good as I can ask for in a fun.
Awesome, awesome. Do you have a moment to read off some donations and some information?
Go right ahead.
Sweet, awesome. We just got an anonymous $15 donation, so we just cleared the $200 mark, which is absolutely. And we're clearing. Sorry, I refreshed the page and was hearing double. But yes, anonymous $15 donation. Thank you so much, anonymous. We just cleared the $200 mark, and we're $15 closer to the incentive for the 242nd star. So only $20 more, and when we hit that incentive, we got about 2 more hours on this run before we're trying to wrap that up. So let's get that extra $20 and roll in from there. But continue on, Viper. Thank you.
So now we're going to begin our comment skill here. So comments are basically modified versions of galaxies that add some sort of change to them. Here we have our first rock comment, which is basically just kill a bunch of enemies within a time limit. And in this instance, I'm going to be using the Rainbow Star to kill all these Spinies. So with the Rainbow Star, as the longer you're running on the ground without slowing down or hitting a wall, you can actually build up this sort of speed. So this star is about kind of maintaining that speed speed for as long as possible, which is easier said than done because it's super run into the wall. And also, another thing that's annoying about this level is I mentioned earlier that that moving platforms and objects don't update when they're not on camera. That actually also applies to the Spinies in this level. So if a Spiny dies and then goes off camera, the counter won't update until the Spiny finishes the death end. And so you actually see it happen to a lot of runners where they get to the end and the counter's just sitting at 29 out of 30 Spinies. And you have to turn the camera last Spiny on and dies. But as long as you're cautious about it, too much of it. Another comet coming up here. So next up is Sky Station's comet, which is the first timed comet of the run. The English version of this game calls them speed run comets with a space, but I don't get to make jokes about that because it's Japanese. And Galaxy 2 actually puts a unique sort of twist on the speed comets, where for example, this comet actually only gives me 20 seconds to start, which is definitely not enough. But you have these clocks throughout the level that add 10 seconds. So I have to route in those. I have to route in as few of those as I can while still giving myself enough time to run. But even then, this is a much shortened version of Sky Station. You can see I skipped a bunch of. And I'm already on my way to Pee-wee. So this Pee-wee fight's going to work exactly the same as the first Pee-wee fight earlier. Where I'm just going to try to ground pound his shell once, spinning at it twice. And I have Star Bits here to stun him if he gets too far away from this first hit. You actually have to be careful when you're shooting Star Bits at Pee-wee before you hit him, because if you shoot him right as the cutscene is about to start, then you actually soft lock the fight because you're no longer able to interact with the cutscene never starts. So if that happens in Sky Station Comet, you just exit the level and try again. But if it happens in Sky Station 1, you actually have to reset. Thankfully, it's pretty avoidable as long as you're careful. Also, in case you're wondering about soft locks, there's really only one that can happen, and it is kind of random whether or not it's extremely rare, but it can happen. But this game autosaves, so you don't have to worry about like the. So I have a couple more stars in World 3 I need to get, and then I can move on to. So to start off here, we have Tall Trunk 1, which is this is another one of those levels that just has a lot to it. You go throughout. It's just kind of thing after happening. So for example, at the start here, you're supposed to use Yoshi and the fruit to climb up the tree, but you can actually use Mario's various acrobatic skills to do that instead. Quite a bit faster, if not. That was executed really well. Yeah, no need for Yoshi on that planet, but we're going to start using him to his full extent here. You have a straight backwards infinite flutterer coming up here, which is kind of a that was a little bit slow, but it still ended up working out. If I were to have missed that Comet Medal, I would have had to either grab or flutter forwards to get to the Comet Medal, and that would have actually killed my ability to go backward, which would have been really. Although I lost maybe like a second with speed there, and then here I'm ditching Yoshi so that I can get to that launch star a little bit quicker and ground pound at the start of this planet. And fall all the way down here super quickly. And then Yoshi will just be in and go. Here, though, I have no choice but to use the Blimper because infinite fluttering upwards is actually really, really low. So using the Blimper here. And you actually want to try to stay close to the. That's actually a little bit. And right there, I actually shook out of the code by using Chuck, so I could keep my pointer. So like I said, there's just a lot to keep with that level. Also, I should probably mention, if I ever drop Yoshi in a pit, he doesn't actually die. He just turns into an egg when he reaches the death barrier and then respawns somewhere else, so I'm not actually... So, no out over it. Yoshi will live forever. So this is actually the first comet to spawn in the game, provided you get every comet medal up until this point. Because the way comets spawn, for the most part, is you require the comet medal for that galaxy and a certain number of comet medals total. So sometimes I'll grab a comet medal in a galaxy that doesn't comet, and that's just to act total so I can faster. So this is the first Cosmic Clones comet. And Cosmic Clones, you saw them back in Sky Station 2. They basically copy your inputs perfectly. You can prevent them from spawning in this first section, but really bothers me. And Cosmic Clones make backtracking really difficult in a lot of situations. Especially in this 2D section, because if you happen to make a mistake when doing a wall jump, they will also make that exact mistake. Try to get back up, they're just all in the way. It makes it impossible to recover. Sketchy. You gotta be kind of careful. Ended up making it through alright though. Okay, so now I have just enough stars in order to access the boss level Bowser. And this is a very, very interesting level. So, if you thought the Infinite Flutters so far in this run have been crazy, this is probably the craziest one in this run. I say that in particular because if the perfect run gets met, you might be able to see one crazy. So, this stage is basically just a bunch of open space with a bunch of moving platforms, and you get Yoshi right at the start, and the level's basically all one height. So you can basically just infinite flutter to skip huge chunks of the level. I do have to split it up into parts though because of the slowdown. And I'm going to be going for the fastest variant of this strat, but also tedious. Mainly because it requires a couple of very precise flutters, and also there's no checkpoint route, so So, to start here, I'm just gonna get on this Yoshi egg, and then infinite flutter straight over to the asteroid. That, for some reason, is collision. And then I'm gonna flutter from the asteroid over to a question block in the middle of the... And then from there, the failure. So now once I get on this question block, I need to get a very, very specific angle so that I get everything that properly is better. Made it. Okay. So the reason why that infinite flutter is so scary is because, again, there's only like a couple angles that will act for that, and height managed absolutely. Just pretty glad that I got that first try. And now we have to fight Mega Hammer, and with the way my sensor bar has been throughout the early portion of this run, I really hope it doesn't screw up for this, because this is also another pointer-based boss. So to start here, I'm going to back up a little bit at the start. I'm going to grab these two bullet bills here and try to get an early hit. There we go. I actually don't want to do that for this phase because I want to cancel Mega Hammer's attacks. This one, and then wait here for a little bit. So when Mega Hammer was rising its hammers there, it was getting ready to smash them together, which would have cost a little bit of time. So now I'm behind Mega Hammer. I'm going to lure 3 bullet bills over here, and then I'm going to use 2 of them to take out this back weak spot, get this one in Yoshi's mouth, and hopefully it will store through the cutscene. did. So you're supposed to wait for Mega Hammer to lower its head so that you can fire at the cockpit, but you can just do a side flip and a full flutter and its hitbox is active. So that makes that second phase. And this is the only Grand Star cutscene in the game that Yoshi is able to be in. Nope. Sorry, Yoshi. So that's the end of the World 3 segment in this run. We're not quite halfway through the game, though. So World 4 actually has the longest world segment in the run, but that's partly because there's a backtracking session. So you spend a little over 40 minutes, provided everything goes well. So if you have anything you want to say really quick, I guess there's a donation to be read. This would be a good time.
Doing a quick check here. No new donations, but can talk about the charity that we are supporting here. It's RAD, aka Rise Above the Disorder, which is a nonprofit dedicated to battling the two greatest barriers to mental health care: access and affordability. As most people know, affordability of healthcare these days is pretty hard to get into, but also finding the access can also be really tough for those around the world who may be in more rural areas or just not in the best support systems. So what RAD is trying to do is make sure that those who need mental health care can both access it and get the help they need to really improve and better their lives. And we're here to change that with them. So they've helped about 37,000 people around the world, and we're here to make sure that that number increases as much as we can help. So any donation helps, and 100% of all proceeds of these donations go straight towards the charity itself, and there's no middleman. So, you are RAD like the rest of us. So please donate. And like we said, there is a 240-second star that we're looking to get here. It's only $20 more to meet the incentive, and we have about an hour and a half left on the for the rest of this run. So, a lot of time left to get in those donations, and hopefully we can support as best we can.
So this is Sweet Mystery Galaxy. The game wants you to go to Supermassive to start out World 4, but there's a nice path instead. This galaxy is more or less the same what you just saw, which is just a bunch of flutters. Not quite as terrifying as this stage, but this flutter I'm essentially doing blind. That was... Again, I'm just using infinite fluttering to cross these distances, otherwise quicker. There is another way to extend a flutter for longer than 10 seconds, and that's actually to bounce off of an object, because that will actually reset the limit. And there are strats in this level that use that. Any of those. And then here I'm doing an infinite flutter to skip having to activate a launch star. For that infinite flutter, you actually don't want to fall, because if you do, then you land, instead of dying, you actually land on this floor, and it takes like up to 20 seconds to find a ledge you can fall off of. Obviously not good, so you just gotta be a pretty broken level. So nice that it can be immersive. The thing with infinite fluttering, and this is kind of what messed me up with that death, is that it involves pressing A and Z in specific rhythms at specific times in order to get it down. But since I have to grab that blend midway through the flutter, things like that can mess up your there. So here's Splitsville Galaxy. This galaxy is great for speedrunning. This first star really why, because there's so many different skips in one level here. There's a few different routes you can take, but this is obviously this route. To start, I'm going to walk jump onto make my way directly long jump for straight to the second. And that actually prevents a kill plane from jump onto the roof and backflip and slide off this other roof to gain some back. And then once I get close enough to the boss plane, I can spin it in the field, and that skips pretty much the stage. Okay, so what I just did there is like a frame perfect ground pound. So normally out of a long jump, you can't normally do a ground pound without first. But if you spin and press Z on the same frame, it cancels the spin and does a. So you'll see me go for that a few. But again, it involves timing your input frame perfectly, and one of them is a motion control dependent input, so you probably won't see me too often, but I can't say it's fine. And Glamdozer is super easy. You just can't, its entire body is vulnerable, so you can out under, and then it's properly. Really cool level all in all. That overall went really well. So, here's the first of 3 Mail Toad letters from Rosalina in this run. And these Mail Toad letters are actually, they don't randomly appear, they appear after specific stars, and they give you 50 star bits. And so this will actually account for 150 of the star bits. So this is the first one. And then there will be 2 more later on. Okay, so now we're going to be moving on to Flicksville 2. And with this level, Nintendo didn't even try to prevent you from skipping having to use the spin drill here. You'll see what I mean. These first 2 planets go by really fast. Like here, you jump around the side of the level. And then on this structure up ahead, you can just wall jump on it for some bizarre reason. Okay, I got a somewhat tight cycle. That first part of this section is actually the hardest part. This entire room is like half off the scroller, half cycle, because you have to kind of wait around, but you also have to do many cycles. And one important thing to note about the spin drill is that when you drill, it actually has a massive hitbox. And it's not really important for this star, but it would be important in the Comet. So you'll notice right there I drilled, and even though I was nowhere near that coin, I grabbed it. Also, I waited a little bit before drilling there, because when the gravity switches like this immediately after the cutscene, the sooner it does that after the cutscene, for some reason it affects Mario's hitbox, to where when you drill into the star, it just automatically. Normally would have to wait for the gravity to switch around. So I will be going back to Sweet Mystery and Flipsville eventually once their comets spawn. Might be wondering why they haven't spawned yet, and I'll get to them. But for now, we're going to move on, and we're going to go ahead and do some Chomp Works. So Chomp Works 1 is one of the longer stars in the run, mostly just because it's just a bunch of auto-scrollers. But that being said, it does get back some pretty fast stars, so... Okay. There is still a lot to take in. Especially. So for starters, you can actually run up. This slope normally is slippery and you can't climb up it, but if you run up the very edge of it, you're not. Which allows you. I can grab that comet medal and make it pop when it appears. And then if I long jump into this launch star, I can prevent a landing together. So that first planet has a lot to it, but then you have planets this where long stars right. This planet actually has a pretty cool strat that we didn't used to think was possible. I'm gonna barely touch the left end he saw before running off of it. And that will actually cause it to lower just enough in order to let this first chomp get on. We used to think that the first chomp would always have to break, but it doesn't. Unfortunately, this last planet can't get to the first chomp in time before it breaks, unless you have a second player. Because with 2 players, the second player controls this like orange Luma, and they are able to grab enemies and hold on to them, so they can grab the chain chomp and hold on to it while you lower the platform the chomp can get on. And that can save around 10 seconds, but I'm not very experienced with using 2 Wii remotes at once, so this entire run is... Yeah, this last part. Scroller, just chomp up. And if it breaks, that's really bad, because again, you can't speed this up. I'm gonna try to get a really high backflip off this button. Okay, backflip. Again, pretty long-winded star, but again, getting that star will allow me to collect some really fast stars later on, so it is still worth it. So if you've ever played Galaxy 1 and you remember the spring, I'm sure you probably hated it, personally, do it. But we're gonna have to use it in this run because we're doing Chomp Works 2. It's actually the only level in the game that has the spring mushroom. And you can actually skip it for the first 2 planets because I know designing levels. And you can actually skip it for the entire star, but it's actually faster to use it on the last one. So there's one pretty noteworthy thing about this level, and that's that there are moving elevators on the planet, but that last planet is visible on the first. So the elevators are moving right now, so I need to have really, really good... Alright, that was really, really fast. The reason why is because I want to try to make a fast platform cycle on the planet that can save around 5 or 6, which is actually pretty big. And another weird difference between nunchuck spins and gear nut spins is that when you do a wall jump, you can spin sooner if you... So hopefully I can fast cycle here. It's really, really... So now I have to stay on. These... That cycle is really, really hard to make. So I'll definitely accept that. And now we're once again brought down to the engine room. So this is where this part of the route gets really, really interesting, because coming up is actually a backtracking session that we used to do after War, but now we do it midway through, for reasons I'll get to in a little bit. So before I actually make any progress in War, I'm actually going to go back to Worlds 2 and 1 and do my second of cleanup trips there. We're going to head back to World 2 now. And I'm actually going to start with Puzzle Plankton Comet, which I could have done way earlier. Convenient to do it now. So, Cloudy Quartz Comet actually unlocks every clone comet in the game, including this one, and this unlocks every purple coin comet. So that's why Sweet Mystery and Flipstel's comets haven't spawned yet, because I haven't done this star. But once I do this star, they will spawn. And this star is pretty straightforward, but it's still really difficult to do off. Because it's really hard to collect each groups of 4 purple coins like that without missing. And you have Cosmic Cones chasing you. Again, I'm doing some little bunny hop. as you can see, it is super, super easy to make a super and have to backtrack for a purple coin, which is more... It only loses a couple seconds each time it happens, but it's really annoying. So it's nice to minimize it. And now you'll start to see purple coin comments spawning. So I'm going to stay in Worlds 2 and... So next up, I'm going to be going to Boulder Bowl Galaxy, and we're going to go to start with Boulder Bowl 1. This star's position has changed so many times throughout the 80% progression. It's actually, we used to do it at star number 15, then we 4, now we do it midway through 4. It's just... So Boulder Bowl 1 has a really interesting gravity exploit where I can jump straight from the to third. Really nice. The second one, this one here, involves killing a bunch of enemies forever. And the way I'm going to do this skip is actually... So when you do a spin jump with Rock Mario onto a ramp as you're rolling, it actually deactivates the ramp for a short period of time and allows you to jump off the ramp. So I'm actually going to be able to jump straight. There are multiple ways of using it, but I have to use Rock Mario for this because I need Rock Mario. Yeah, that skip saves it. My man, that's the fastest. And it's not too hard. And now we have one of the more awkward boss fights in the run, so we're going to fight Rolodillo. So the first hit here is actually really easy, but the second, third, and fourth hits are where the game kind of likes. So for these next few hits, I don't want to end up in Rolodillo's immediate line of sight, because then he'll initiate this rolling attack that actually loses quite a bit of time. So I'm going to try to kind of come at him from behind like this. But the really awkward thing about this is that trying to chase while you're trying to chase. So that angle isn't always perfectly straight. And also, I'm trying to do these jump spins to extend the length of my roll so I can get a different hit. And if you mess up the angling on them, you can actually roll past them. The sight and use time. But that was a perfect. There we go. Boulder Bowl 1, all in all, got a lot of cool stuff going for it. And here we actually have the second mail toad to work with. So because I just got Boulder Bowl 1, I'm brought down to the engine room, the Rock Mario game. However, because I just got Boulder Bowl 1 and a star from Chunkworks, I'm also going to get a mail toad letter for Boulder Bowl letter. So I'm going to be worked straight out of the engine. And again, this just saves some. So it's nice that we've been able to work 2 of these. Speaking of Boulder Bowl letter, that's actually the next star I'm going to do. So in this star, you're going to see Boulder Bowl 1 skip again, but this time without Rock Mario. And it's actually even easier than the method I showed off earlier, because you don't even have to use a setup. Although, the jump past this... But once you're here, it's super... Run to the left, jump off, spin, build. Now I get to the fun part of this mission. I have to lure this Goomba over to a Goomba. And if this Goomba dies, this Goomba gets rolled over by a Chomp or a Rock, it dies, and I only get to roll the star. And if both of them die, I have to do it. So, thankfully that worked out. Also, that's another place where the game can block for literally no reason. We still aren't quite sure why it happens, and it's really, really rare, but it can happen. It really sucks that when it does happen. And it's only ever happened to me, but it can happen.
Mind if I interject for a moment?
Sure, go ahead.
Sweet. We just got a raid from Data Miss. Thank you very much for the raid. Really appreciate it. The organization is in your world looking for hearts. There are lots of hearts available, so really appreciate the raid, everyone. Welcome to the stream.
Welcome to Weeb Space Mario the Second.
Have just another minute after this, or just let me know when you get their next moment. We got
Okay, we have a bunch of comments in a row coming up here. So starting off, we have Hightail Falls, which is basically just Hightail Falls 1, but on a timer. And I don't have to collect any of those clocks this time around. The main differences here are that there's some holes in the ground and there's some meteors falling, which for the most part aren't a big deal. And then the ending of the star is going to be slightly different because I don't need to get the comet medal this time around, so I'll be able to take a slightly. So for the most part, again, this star is just going to be about maintaining the pepper's effect. And I also have to avoid these smeeches so that I stuff. You can go ahead and.
Great, yeah. So actually, we just got a nice fat $20 donation from Anonymous saying 242nd star. Hell yeah, brother! There we go. So we've actually just met. Yep, good old Macho Man Randy Savage. A little bit of a throwback from the WCW run we got just a few hours ago. But yeah, so we've actually hit the donation incentive for the Super Mario Galaxy run. So after this, we'll be seeing that 242nd star. So
you don't want to miss that because the flutters I'm going to try to show off there. The flutters you're going to see in this 90% run are nothing compared to. And speaking of crazy Yoshi techniques, this isn't an infinite flutter. So there's a variable in the Galaxy games called tilt that, where basically depending on how far back Mario is leaning on a planet due to its gravity, it will actually differ how high his jumps go. So because you're leaning super far back on that wall, your jump goes in, and that is faster if you're not taking. Plus, it just looks. So I'm going to ask for some blesses in the chat now because this game doesn't have a lot of RNG in it, but we have probably the worst RNG portion of the entire run with Comet. So there's 30 crabber enemies I have to kill on the planet where Lolodilla was using Rock Mario. And the crabbers just kind of like to do whatever the heck they want. So I'm mostly just going to be kind of hoping that they group up until I reach about 24 or 20 of them, and then start focusing on the individual ones. And the blue crabbers really suck because they're moving. Also, I don't want to run out of time here because then I have to. So there's another interesting piece of rock tech that is actually intended, but the game never tells you about, and I hilariously up there, where you can actually jump out of a hole early by pressing A and then down, and that makes the star way easier because otherwise you have to wait fire, and that's not. So I'm at the point where I can just start focusing. I think that's all. More left. Right next to it. So that actually went really well. Hopefully I collect the star with the rock here. Nice. That was actually pretty good. You optimally want to finish that star with like a little over 20 seconds left, so I would definitely take that. I've had to finish that star with 1 second remaining. Okay, so we got one more star left in this little section. We go back to World 4. But first we get the second 50-star bit letter. Okay, so now we get to go visit our good friend Gobblegut again, as we're going to Ari Flotilla's Comet. And this is just the fight against Gobblegut on a time limit, so you don't have to do the actual stage. If you were here for the Gobblegut fight earlier, it's basically the exact same. Since I got a perfect Gobble Gut fight before, hopefully I just do that again here. Although if I mess it up, then you'll get this. But yeah, basically, if you missed it earlier, I'm just going to be trying to attack these 6 Bellyache while he's there. And this is the kind of strat where everything. This first phase is the easier of the two, but right from this first. So, and then again, for the second phase, I'm just going to try to get Gobble Gut closer to it so that they last it. That was another perfect Gobble Gut. And so you'll notice in-game time, not including the cutscenes, I was in that fight for like 12 seconds. Again, that fight takes a lot of practice to get. There's so many tiny. There we go. And that is it for that cleanup session, and there are no more stars I'm going to want to get from World 1 and 2. So we are finally able to go back to World 4 and continue making progress there. But we're not quite done with Comet. Still have a few more comets to clear, and then we can get back in. To start off, we got the 2 purple coin comets that didn't spawn earlier, but I can get them starting with Sweet. This star is actually deceptively difficult. It might not seem that bad, but the problem is that you have to collect 100 purple coins while on Yoshi. Yoshi walks really fast, so you want to stay on the ground as much as possible, but that also makes it super hard to collect all the purple coins without missing any. So this level requires one. And also every time I jump, you're going to see me do a short flutter to reduce the length of. Yes. Thankfully, this level doesn't require any. You fall down. I'm cutting it a little bit closer. And like I said, movement in. This section is kind of interesting because this platform up ahead actually moves on control and might have been fast enough. If you're fast enough to get to it before it makes it all the way to that second and skip out and avoid having to, from which can save quite a bit. You have to be like perfect to it. Although it does only start moving. But still. As long as you just get through that star in a decently timed fashion, nothing. This next star, on the other hand, has a lot of precision to it and a lot of risk as well. So Flipsville Comet involves getting 100 purple coins in that room where the silver stars were earlier for Flipsville 2. And I am on extremely tight cycles, especially with this route I'm going to be doing, for basically the entirety of it. And I also have to rely on the Spinfield's hitbox in order to collect some massive loot without having to. This first half of the stars require a little bit of focus. Okay. Oh boy. So now I have to improvise because my cycle is off. I'm gonna wait for So I just lost like maybe 1 second. It's fuzzy. I ended up saving that alright, so I only missed like maybe 2 cycles there. It's really easy to make a mistake on that star and just have it snowball. So the fact that I was able to back that up really quick and nice. I was able to catch that I didn't get that 1 purple time. As a result, so I only lost like 8. It's decent. And we got 1 more comment before we can finish off the comment backtracking session. And that's actually Chompwork Comet. So this is basically the last play of Chompworks 1, but with Cosmic Clones. It means it's kind of just still an auto-scroller. Although you can get a frame time here. Not a whole lot here, so I actually want to explain something that's gonna happen after Chompworks Comet that might confuse you. So one of the things that we keep in mind when we route out the galaxy is minimizing map cutscene, because that can save time where it's possible. So one of the ways I'm going to do that with this route is that I actually have enough stars right now in order to unlock the barrier to grab out Gauntlet. In previous routes, we didn't. So we have to get stars from both Chompworks and Starshine in order to unlock that barrier. But because I can do that in this case, unlocking the barrier at this point will actually spawn both the path to Gravity Gauntlet and the path from Starshine, which means that once I get a star from Starshine, that path cutscene just won't play since the path is already spawned, and that can save around 5 seconds. So that's part of the reason why we moved one of the backtracking sessions earlier, so that we can have enough stars. Yeah, that star, not really a whole lot to it. Just don't let your chomp break and don't die, and you're good. It's actually easier said than done. That star can be quite tricky. Now we can finally get back to some new stuff. First, I gotta open the barrier, though. So you'll see here that it's gonna spawn 2 different ways. There we go. And then I can go back to Starshine Beach and go ahead and get what I can. So Starshine Beach 1 is actually one of the few open world-based galaxies in the game, which is really good, especially for Starshine Beach 1, because it's a Silver Star mission, spread about, so you can there's actually no limit path to take, but there is still a pretty obvious speed to this. And also, unlike Super Mario Sunshine, you have Yoshi in this galaxy, and Yoshi doesn't dissolve from water. So that will prove to be really useful throughout this. I stun that Crabber there, and then I'm going to Crabber and flutter up to this little glass with silver surface. Grab it. And then I can infinite flutter from here all the way over to the tower. I'm actually a little bit far back. Flutter slowly. So at this point, I've hit the 10 seconds. This is what happens when you try to flutter forwards. Here I can get the Dash Pepper, and the Dash Pepper actually allows you to run on water with Yoshi. Allows me to get this 4th Silver Star, and also allows me to do a pretty clever strat with this 5th. So that was kind of just like what you saw in High Tail Falls 1, where I dismount off of Dash Pepper Yoshi while traveling up a steep slope, which gives me a lot of. And this is one of the few comet medals that's like super out of the way. You have to dedicate about 10 seconds to actually get the comet medal star, but it will net me one of the fastest comet stars. One of the stars actually. Yeah, there's a lot to that level as well. So now, next on the roster, we have Starshine Beach 2, which is actually normally a very long and convoluted level that involves going through a massive series of steps in order to use clouds to climb up the central tower. But if you remember back in Honey Bloom 1, there was an exploit I used where you can jump off those clouds before they disappear, which I can use to avoid having to use Cloud Mario. And in order to get onto the highest cloud, I'm going to Chuck's throw me high to get on. First part of the star is just me actually getting to it, but then you'll need to skip. On the way there, I'm also going to turn the camera at one point, just so I can do like the cloud cycle. So just doing that brief little camera should allow me to just jump. And then once I start falling and land on the cloud, jump off of it, tower, and there. So that saves close to a minute, probably, because you basically straight to the tower and get on top of it. So now it's time to actually move. Now it's time to finally conclude World 4 with its boss level, and this one is Bowser's Gravity Gauntlet. This is another one of those stages that's quite speedrunning because there's actually two different lava boost / gravity exploits that you use to skip massive chunks of this level, and you'll actually be seeing me go for both of them in this run. So the one I'm going to go for in Gravity Gauntlet 1 is called Behind the Castle, and it should be obvious why it's called that. Basically, I need to do this skip in this star because I need to go a little bit further into the level to get the Comet Medal, and the Comet Medal Behind the Castle. And basically what this skip entails is getting into the lava plane behind the castle and lava in the final 2D section of the level. And it sounds simple, but it isn't. So for one, I'm going to take advantage of a slope exploit, where slopes sort of lose their slippery effect if they are really, really far away from the camera. And so that little green spiked tower there has a slope on top of it, but I can get around that. The skip is a lot harder than it looks. The hard part about that skip is that you can't just lava boost and hold right. You actually have to be a specific distance away from the castle in order to die. You have to pull yourself a little bit away from it, and visually hard to tell, so... And dying to that skip loses like 40 plus seconds at least. It's very good that I got that. Missed a lock there. It's actually possible to hit 2 of these locks at once with a very, very precisely aimed trigger, but there's no consistent setup to do it anywhere, so I just kind of go for all 3 separately. And now we're off to the Bowser fight. So this Bowser fight is mostly the same as the previous one, but it does take quite a difficulty spike here. So, in this fight, Bowser only drops 2 meteors instead of 3, which means it is totally possible for Bowser to punch out here. And also, there will be shockwaves coming off of both Bowser's punches. Also, for this first hit, I'm going to be going for something called a pistol, so after Bowser twice, he's going to summon the beast, and I'm not actually going to hit them in. Wait for him to charge an attack. So I'm going to wait for Bowser to charge him a punch attack and then ground pound. and this will make Bowser think he's already punched. So, therefore, response will be not an ideal position. It's not so much of an issue on this fight or the previous fight, but it can be an issue on the last fight. That whole canceling aspect also applies to the part where Bowser summons meteors. So if you hit him as he's doing that attack, then it'll actually cancel that attack by accident. So when Bowser goes to punch, there are no meteors for you to ground pound. Which is basically the same as hit ultimate. And again, missed hit is about like 2 seconds. I don't. Get away. It looked like he was going to punch out both there, so I just wanted to be a little bit careful. And that's it for this fight. So again, this would now probably be. If you got anything, any donations to read or anything to plug, go ahead and do that. Just got some more dialogue and cutscene.
Yeah, it's probably been a hot minute since we talked about the charity. So, the charity we're supporting this marathon is RAD, aka Rise Above the Disorder. It's a nonprofit dedicated to battling two greatest barriers to mental health care, access and affordability, which are just very common things for a lot of us to deal with today. So, to accomplish the mission, they're providing universal mental health care system to people around the world, but they really need that, just that to break that barrier with the affordability to provide that access to people that really need it. So, with the marathon we're doing here, all of our donations, 100% of it is going towards the charity, which all goes towards that mental health care that people really need across the world. The charity itself has been able to support 37,000 people across the world, which is absolutely incredible at the end of the day, and a very high number considering the low amount of access that people have to this care. But we definitely want to increase the amount that we can provide, and so as much as we can give, the better, and hopefully y'all can help provide as well. But that's about all I have to say.
So now we're about 2/3 of the way in the run. Again, in older routes, we would do an additional backtracking session after World 4, and we don't actually spend too long in World 5. We only get 10 stars here. So, but the 10 stars we do get here there are some interesting. We're going to start with Space Storm. So Space Storm 1, it's not a particularly long star, so it doesn't matter, but it is required if you actually progress in this world. It's just simply on it. Again, it's not too long of a star, so. Although it is also pretty. The second planet here has a lot of elevators that move cycles, and getting through here. So this particular long jump for that saves about 5 seconds. That long jump took me about an hour to get to properly learn. So I lost about a cycle there from that mistake, but that's pretty bad. This goes to show that even the tiniest mistake just costs you so much. Especially because of gravity. Just bob on blows with the glass, I can just long jump straight to the launch star and walk all. And now we get to deal with pole stars. It's pointer based, so this section isn't hard, but not confident here with that. So pole stars are actually kind of tricky to work with, at least speedrunning, because you have to release yourself from them before you enter an orbit. That section went off. And you probably got a little scared there when I hit that laser beam. When you hit those, when you get shocked like that, you're briefly suspended in air, so you have enough time to grab onto it. It's not a big deal. And the cool thing about Space Storm 1 is that once you get it, you basically just have access to the rest of Vault 5. So I don't have to do this. Although I'm going to spend a little bit longer in Space 2. And this is another really, really fast star, provided, of course. So this star actually kind of pays homage to Base Galaxy from Galaxy 1. It even has the music, which a lot of people love. Sadly, not going to too long. Again, this level's you're actually supposed to hit a bunch of these blue switches that slow down time, but I'm going to try to not get that. So the first big thing here is that instead of going to the right and dealing with all that crap, I can jump on this wall up here. Up here. It's okay, you just get to hear more. Swamp momentum here. Triple jump here, just fighting these top men. That wasn't too bad. I was able to back that up pretty well. When mistakes like that happen, you get thrown off your cycles. You kind of have to improvise when that happens. It worked out. "34 seconds optimally can be done in, like I said. You're not gonna get. Move on to bulk of 5. I'm gonna start with Shiverburn Galaxy, which is sort of a sequel to Freeze Flame Galaxy from Galaxy. And if you missed your opportunity back in Freezy Plague to guess my score from the ship check, this is your second do so. So again, the rules are you can guess between 600. Only guess in post. Do you have any guesses you want to make?
Nope, nothing right now. I did recently talk about everything else, but we do have more incentives.
I was going to ask if you had any guesses for the score.
Oh, sorry. Guesses. So I think I guessed 600 last time. I think I'm going to stick with the same number. I think I'm going to keep the same number this time. But we'll see how it goes. Also, this monkey looks really cool and like it's straight out of Super Monkey Ball. That 850 guess, though. That 850 guess. No. 790 that time around, correct? Still there, Viper? I think you might be muted, Viper, or your phone might have died.
Hello, am I hearable?
Hey, welcome back, welcome back.
I have no idea what just happened. I was in the call and it was showing me as green when I spoke.
That's all right. Well, welcome back. Feel free to catch us back up and everything that just happened, though.
Yeah,
brief recap.
I was just fighting Prince Vicante. I was doing a strat that is not RNG dependent, and it does require some specific manipulation. Anyways, here's Boo Moon 1. Boo Moon is kind of the other spoopy level of the game. I also got the third and final Rosalina letter with 50 star bits. So Boo Moon 1, Boo Moon in general is just not too exciting of a galaxy overall, except for this star. Actually, one thing I can talk about here, there's kind of just a bunch of snake blocks here, so it's mostly just a bunch of auto-scrollers, but there's a... Boo Moon 1 in particular has a pretty cool gravity exploit I can skip having to... What I'm going to do here is I'm going to run ahead, activate this wall, and then head back over here to this snake block, wait for the gravity to get away. You can jump onto the side of this snake block, jump off, and then just enter the launch star like that. So that skips having to wait for most of the second snake block, and this is one of the stars that's like on the cusp of being a route or not, but because of that skip. Plus it looks cool, so it's definitely worth including. And then the rest of the star is pretty cool. So interestingly, there's another star I'm going to be getting in Boo Moon, but I'm actually going to be doing this galaxy in trips because of, again, world map optimization. It's hard to explain in words. It has something to do with the text box notifications that appear after collecting stars overlapping with events on the world map, such as spawning, and doing the stars in this order overlaps them in ways that it's really complicated. There's people who know more about this. I wasn't really involved with the routing in this game. Right, so before I go back to Boo Moon, I'm actually going to head to right side, not right side down. This is Upside Dizzy, which is the sequel level to Right Side Down. In other words, it's basically just a nice, large gravity field of this, except this level is like 10 times as awkward as Right Side Down, and it's also extremely cycled, especially Upside Down. This is another one of those galaxies where a single mistake can speed snowball you close. So right from this first card. And now I can long jump into this gravity field and get shot super high up. here. Doom a bounce to this pipe. That lever, and now we're in this section, awkward hallway and all of it. So you have to have basically you have to have a predetermined movement route through here, or else you're just gonna stumble your way. That's actually fun, because I have a backup plan. That worked out. So that probably could have been like a couple seconds better, but that overall was a really solid episode. That level is another one that takes so much practice. And even when you have it down, you can still mess it up. I pressed A. So just like right side down, this one also has a secret star that involves burning a bunch of boxes. That. And I'm going to go for another Koopa bounce into the pipe here. The trick with this strat is not having Mario flip around in the air. Also, by the way, that was a little weird, but it worked. And then we got this box burning. I would argue easier to do quickly than the first one, because less awkward and you have to throw the fireballs at, but you are on a tighter. Also, another important thing to consider is that when shooting a fireball, it actually comes out of Mario's right hand, so you want to be a little to the left to aim, so that... I missed those two. I lost about like there. But again, as long as you just get it with, you're okay. So that's it for Upside Dizzy. And this will be the last time we're brought down to the here. And it's just as useful as every other way to ball. And now we're going to head back to this time we're going to do Star, which similarly to Cosmic Cove, requires me to select Boot 1 and not Boot 2. And since my pointer is being kind of screwed now, we're going to use none control sticks like auto-selecting. That. And then this star, unfortunately, doesn't have a whole lot. Right? They block the entire way. I can't do that cool skip I did it. So that is that's one of a few places in this game where you can't go person mode, so you can cancel. However, it is still possible if you press up on the D-pad or obviously not something expecting it. Yes. Chill here for a little bit. Instead of taking this launch storm, I passed it because there's another set of. Instead of riding this snake blocks like that, that's actually way easier than actually riding the snake block because the octave it moves really fast in the octave booth. Some of the worst enemies. It's really fortunate. We got one more star before we can put 5 in that Shiver stars. So Shiverburn Comet is the third of four romp comets in this game, all four of which are in this run actually. And this just involves killing 30 of the Octuba enemies on the platform where Dante is. With Rainbow Mario, which is actually kind of because you would think that I would just skate for this star. Obviously, that's kind of what I got you to do. But it's actually fast. It's actually easier to make sharper turns while running. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skate into the Rainbow Star to build up momentum, and then jump out of the skate, and then I can just get off this Rainbow Star. Yeah, pretty basic level there. Okay, so it's time to round off World 5 with another pretty nerve-wracking level, and also a very annoying one, and that is actually Bowser Jr.'s Boom Bunker. So you probably noticed throughout this run that there have really been any motion control based levels, and that's not going to change. This level, however, revolves around aiming cannons, which is based. And even if you have a good pointer, it's still really obnoxious. Because the two cannon shots you have to make in this level are stupidly precise, and if you miss either of them, it's death. And they're not short deaths. And obviously when you get Hero 2, you have to worry about holding your hand steadily. That's not... Especially considering how far... Also, those jumps I've been doing on the fly-ins, those are... I haven't... Yeah, I've got them. This bird's taking a shot here. I'm gonna aim at that base to kill it. That cannon shot is insane. You have an insanely small target to hit, and you mess it and die, and that's 30 plus seconds. Doing that allows you to... This cannon shot isn't as... Uh-oh. That was an aiming fault. I aimed too far to the right. I'm trying to land on that red. That one might also miss. This isn't my pointer, by the way. It's just me. You don't have a whole lot of... In my defense, you don't have a whole lot of time. There we go. And if that wasn't bad enough, now I have to do this trick. So that... You're supposed to use Cloud Mario to get to the end of that section, but you can do it instead. And that doesn't even... That's part of the reason why I had to do that cannon shot. And here's the last encounter with Bowser Jr. This is Bowser Jr.'s. And this fight can go one of two ways. Either it ends very quickly, or you lose like 30 seconds. These first two hits are actually... You ground pound it. I have to wait a little bit on the second hit. Otherwise... he doesn't become vulnerable until like right around there. And now this is the hit where you really, really have to be quick or to get on top of Bowser. You don't have a whole lot of time to do it at all. And this will mark the end of the World 5 segment. So at this point, we just have 15 stars and 1 world left to go. Unfortunately, we're not quite done with the run yet. Obviously, there is still a hefty amount of run left, I'd say. 40 minutes per take. So thankfully, also, this is the last time we have to watch this cutscene, but World 6 is where runs go to die in this category, because there's just so much World 6, and so many costly mistakes that can... So we just gotta hope for the best here. So we're actually going to start off with Melting Monster Galaxy, and I'll actually be able to get all 3 stars here in a single trip. Just miss. Melting Monster is one of those galaxies where if you take it slow and easy and you do all the safe strats, it's not a hard level. But at my level, it's... you kind of have to go all in. There's a bunch of different ways that the run can end in Melting. So Melting Monster 1 doesn't really have anything too significant happening with it. It does have these tornadoes in the second on cycles. Kinda have to... and they're on global cycles, so while I'm in this section, they're still... so I have to play pretty... So that was actually really good first section. And then this second section has like a bunch of skits. So I actually got my momentum short here by that. Okay, this is hard. So what happened there was that was entirely my fault. And I made a lot of really poor decisions. What happened there was I actually hit a lava wall, and that information will become important later. But let's hope that doesn't happen again. So this is the kind of tornado cycle I would have had for a second. And that actually allows me. So here comes the final section of this level, which is really, really annoying because every single one of these planets has its own gravity pull. I can skip the first few by... for that, I have to be careful. And this crystal is one of the most annoying. Overall, this ending section is to get through. That ended up working out alright. I don't know what I was thinking when I tried doing those jumps without spinning, but sometimes that just happens, you know, when you get thrown off your pattern and you have on-the-fly decisions, and that's one thing about speedrunning as well as adaptive. Sometimes you have strats on the fly. But that's not even the hardest of the Melting Monster stars, which is just delightful. So the other 2 stars actually revolve around using Rock Mario. So basically they're playing. And these are the kinds of stars where, again, if you play it safe and you don't go for all the stupid stuff, you're probably not going to lose that much time, but the stupid stuff that barely saves any time could cost you. But since it's a marathon and my best possible time is already almost 3 minutes. Maybe? What the heck? So Melting Monster 2, this is actually a really good level to use for farming star bits. Most SNG2 runners will be hard to build their Big Toad between attempts. But If you don't do that, then you can more. It's kind of just rolling around with Rock Mario in almost a straight line. One minor optimization you can do with Rock Mario, up spins just speed you up, save like a couple each time you do it. So you'll jump. So the big thing in this level that's super risky to go for, especially 2.5 hours into a 3-hour run, is called the deck skip, where I'm gonna, instead of bumping back and forth along the fences near the end here, I'm just gonna ride and try to tiny gaps in the middle. This is extremely nice. Got it. And then I have to hit the star, which is a task in and of itself. So. The reason why that skip is so hard is because of the precision in which you both have to turn to the right and turn back. But, and it only saves 3 seconds, and if you fail it and roll off, you lose 45. But taking the fences is also not entirely safe because they can just bounce you into oblivion for no reason whatsoever. So, all in all, Melty Monsters. Now we have Melty Monster Secret, where we got more risk rats before. So remember those ramp jumps I did for Boulder 1 skip where I deactivated the ramp thing onto it? I'm going to be going for those a lot here, but I'm also going to be doing a bunch of blind to try to skip. And you'll see why I'm gonna... Okay, that was... I tried jumping here, but what I'm trying to do is jump off the very edge of the ramp. Because normally what's supposed to happen here is you take the ramp rolling, and you stop rolling when it's platform. By jumping at the edge of the ramp like that, instead, you cancel that effect. I'm going to be going for this a bunch of times. Learn. 56 pins here, you need to hit 50 and then the high score. So, not entirely lenient, but... And that's it for Melty Monsters. So, as you probably saw there, unfortunately, I kind of got the brunt end of just how bad Melty Monsters. That either of those mistakes would have killed a people. But we're out of there. And finally, the local called 6. Starting off, we're going to be taking the bottom path here, because it's better to take the bottom path over the top, because we don't want to do battle. And this is the last one. This Hungry Luma Galaxy is going to be Flashpoint. It is somewhat of an interesting galaxy, I suppose. Basically, you only get a brief glimpse of the level's layout every few seconds. The lights kind of flicker on and off. And once you've played this level enough times, you sort of memorize its layout. And honestly, the star doesn't have a whole lot going for it. Mostly because in this first section, top, or slow. And then the last section. But this is still a better alternative than going to the top half. Flat. There is a pretty cool strat in this level that involves for getting the common. See that here. just got enough to bounce off that Yakuza backwards. Basically just fly right in. That was this last time. Collect. This yellow platform is on different. I should have tried. I thought I could make that, but I've been making a lot of. We're just here to have. So that's what I should.
So, as I said before, somebody who's never played like a Galaxy game or those sorts of things, as we're coming into like the last like portion of the game itself, is there anything that kind of like stands out, either movement-wise or regarding like the game itself that you're paying like special attention to, or is it just the consistency of knowing the game and really just knowing your route that?
Yeah, knowing routes for every stage, and also just kind of getting a feel for how the controls work, because compared to a game like SM64, there isn't. It might not seem like there is as much depth to the movement, but there actually kind of is. It's just a different sort of. And I'm actually kind of glad you brought that up, because we're going into Slimy Spring now, which is the resident sleeper level of the run. The only reason this level's in the route is because it's better than. But it's basically just 2 minutes to swim water with health. It used in earlier routes, it was done a few stars later, so it'd be a kind of. But now it's done earlier, which is sort of still.
Gotcha. And I guess more questions as in comparison to SM64 and other SM games in general. Is there's something different, I guess, about Galaxy 2 that, at least for you, makes it stand out more, whether it be like nostalgia or kind of just.
It's mostly just the execution of the deck. Like I guess I can get the story. So I first learned about this game's speedrun from Yoshi Fanti 14 run, which I didn't watch live, but I did watch. And I kind of had this notion where it's just like, this game looks like too much fun, I want to try it, and also like I could see myself doing some of those tricks that you're doing in their run. And I just kind of felt like that, and what's surreal about it is that 5.5 years later, I actually came at 2019.
Very cool. Very cool. Nice. I feel like that's, for a lot of us runners, that's kind of typical. As you see a run and you're like, wow, I feel like I could really do that myself, and really emulate that to the best degree, and show it off in that sense. But yeah, very cool.
So I already grabbed coins already in this level, so no matter if I grab them here, but you can complete this by just touching outer edges. Kind of hard to do. So I'm basically second. There is something cool coming off at the end. This is just a little flex strap. It's actually two of them back to back. This. And I'm going to try to get close enough to Captain Toad here. I think that might. So instead of just turning around and punk jumping to the star, I'm actually going to flip. And because of how close I am to him, his hitbox is going to kind of push me out like that. And it just kind of pushes me to the star. So that's just a tiny little option. So I still haven't met the 70 star requirement for unlock Galaxy. Now I have to go back up to the top. I can't exactly continue on. And I'm not going to get too many stars from the. We're actually going to start with Clockwork Ruins. So I need to get a star from Clockwork Ruins in order to get to the next galaxy. Not going to spoil it, but you'll find out about it shortly. So the only really viable option here is the Secret Star, which does involve collecting coins to feed your hungry Luma. The good news is, though, once you do that, the star is basically... But this is another one of those levels where cycles matter, and you really, really don't want to die. Because otherwise the cycle... So I'm actually going to kind of take a nice little... The route I'm going to be doing here is pretty safe and also gets the coins in. It's really just kind of a matter of knowing how to tell what's floor and what's wall. So once I get over here, I'm actually going to look ahead in first-person mode to advance the cycles of the platform.
And is that the only time that you use first-person mode in this game? Or...
Actually, I've been using first-person mode all over the place, because like I said at the start of this run, I'm using it almost every single time I land launch starting.
Ah, okay, yeah. So I did think I noticed it, but I wasn't sure if you pointed it out. I've sort of been in and out, double-checking things here and there, so I feel bad that I missed it. But yeah, that's actually really interesting, though, that you can actually switch the key points to change everything like that.
Yeah, because like I talked about landing. But first I'll talk about this little skit here. This is another one of those planets where you basically... So, I was talking earlier, basically the way landing cancels is that when you land from a launch star, you enter first-person mode and then exit it immediately. And that allows you to move right away instead of having to deal with that, like, 1 second landing.
Oh wow, yeah, I think that's actually happening fast enough that I can't even see it on stream almost. Yeah.
Basically, I'm like holding... Basically what I do is as soon as I land, I press up on the D-pad and then press A. So it is basically... Okay, so I'm done with Clockwork Ruins now. That level in. Alright. So now it's time for a galaxy I'm sure many of you will be familiar with. This is Throwback Galaxy, which is actually a recreation of Whomp's Fortress from SuperViperT302. And what's especially cool about this particular marathon run is that we have an SM64 120-star run right after this. So hopefully it doesn't take the runner this long to reach Whomp's. Because, you know, Whomp's is one of the first stages in that game. Kind of 2 hours. Hopefully it's not that bad a bomb clip. Anyways. Unfortunately, though, the movement in this game isn't nearly as flashy as SM64, but I have to go make my way over here to where the loud blue star is, as this like metal is, and then from here I can make my way up to the star easy. So you can actually skip killing this Whomp by having it clip you more, which would save like 5 seconds, but it's stupid precise. If you fail it, you get crushed and die. Worth it, especially. Here's the actual King Whomp fight. So you couldn't tell because it's in Japanese. He actually has the same text as he does in the before, but you can't glitch. This fight overall is pretty self-explanatory. Jump around so that you don't get hit and get stunned and crushed. Try to go for a flex here.
So how close is the timing for like when the King Whomp actually like comes down that you're actually moving past him? Is it like not frame perfect, but you know, is there a certain frame that you're looking for that you'll know you'll be safe whenever you jump backwards to do a ground pound?
It just kind of comes down to getting a feel for the timing, sort of understand. There is always the same amount of time between when he starts rumbling and falls down. So once you kind of understand that. Okay, so I have 32 comet medals. exactly the number. Actually, this comet requires 32 comets. This is what I'm collecting for. This is also going to be the last time the purple idiot brings the starship to bother. There is one more time he's supposed to talk to you, but next up we're going to do Throwback 2. And this is just a Silver Stars mission, so kind of paying homage to SN64DS is actually good. So, on the Silver Star positioning here is kind of arbitrary, but since this is another one of those open levels, not entirely linear, and Cloud Mario, that opens up quite a few routing keys. And this is just kind of a nice start. Okay, so for example, right up here, we're going to be collecting the Cloud Flower, and then I need to be careful when I drop down to collect the Silver Star. If I make this Cloud too early, then I don't get that Silver Star, and I have to... And here I'm kind of veering off to the right when I did that long jump, because again... Cloud boosted long jump. This Silver Star. One final series here. Okay. So this is actually going to be the last normal star I'm going to be collecting in this run, because the last 6 stars I'm going to be collecting before Galaxy Generator are all comets. So I'm going to be getting 2 from World 4, 2 from World 3, and 2 from World 6, and that will bring me up to 70 stars. So we're kind of in the home stretch, but there's still a bunch of run killers left. Starting with this next star, actually. So, 2 things I need to remind you of. One is Gravity Gauntlet 1, where I did that weird behind the castle skip. You're actually going to get to see the other, much faster skip here from Comet Metal. And the way the skip works is when you hit a lava wall, as opposed to a lava floor, I guess it converts your vertical lava boost speed into horizontal lava boost speed. So then if you hit the lava again, you get an insane boost in horizontal. And that can actually be used for another gravity. The problem with it is that it requires very specifically timed direct. And a single... It's not a... It's at the end of the run, it's off. Good. So I got that skip first try. So that is faster than... The one major caveat, though, is that in this game, if you spend too long in the lava boost state without touching the ground, the game just automatically kills you. And that skip is actually pushing the limit of that timer. So, since that initial bounce does count as part of the lava boost state, it's possible for you to land on that platform, but then fall through the floor and die, because the timer expired. So, that's one of those skips that's insanely difficult. And it's just also difficult to time the direction switch. But I'm really glad I got that first try. I really hope you... That is it's one of the coolest strategies. And now we got a couple of nice little stars. So this is the comet that I went out of my way to start trying to get that comet medal for. You're gonna see why, because this is not only insanely fast, but also... there are 140 purple points here, and you're basically on dash pepper the entire time, so... Yeah, that's... The one tricky thing, though, is that to not miss too many purple coins, you want to make super tiny adjustment, which is not easy. And you'll see why I don't want to miss it. So I have about 89 here, so I'm actually going to take a little cut to here. It's a little bit faster. You need a, like, at least 88 or something points for that to be it. Otherwise, you... Yeah. That level's pretty...
Yeah, I'd be really scared about that level. Just with missing one of the two. I feel like with my luck it would happen all the time. I would just have really poor RNG with it.
You have a ton of... So now we're going to be here. So this comment I could have done way, way earlier in the run, but for routing convenience, now this is Honey Hall's comment. It's the last part of Honey Hall's 2, but with multiple punks. It's still just a bunch of long jumps. The cycles are slightly different though, so that's it. Right after this, though, we are going to get back to another. All in all, like I said, the end game portion of this, not. That being said, you don't want to get too carried away. Die. And now we're going to do B block comment. So, B block comment is... This star just kind of outright lies to you. Again, this is Japanese, so you can read it, but in the English version it says silver stars in double time, which is actually not true, because it's actually 4 times advanced. So, in B block 1, the blocks switch every beats of the song. Here, they switch every other beats. Which thankfully means you don't have... Thankfully, missing cycles obviously isn't that bad, because it's instant, but it also makes it so that you have to be a lot more careful. And the Silver Star area has also expanded quite a bit. Obviously. For some reason, though, you get Yoshi in the star. Because you use him to butter it. You really just kind of have to come. So, I did this jump while there wasn't a blocker. Shake should allow me to land on the platform. That's a really scary star. Okay, so at this point we just have the 2 comments for World 6 left. We are just about at the end. So, next comment on the roster is actually Throwback's comment, so we're going to go back to World 6. So, if you enjoyed Throwback 2 from just like 10 minutes ago, it looks like, no, less than that actually. If you enjoyed Throwback Comment 2 from just a few minutes ago, you're going to love this star because it is basically the exact same thing. They're literally the only difference is that there's a timer. Actually, that's a lie because some cycles near the beginning are slightly because of different. Other than past that. So I have to be a little bit quicker. Past it. You cycle. So again, person who's doing a 120 star after this rest, I don't want to sit on 3 hours. So we have the funny number of stars now. And the last star before a galaxy generator is sort of anticlimactic, but it's kind of a cool idea for how speed this game. So this is the 4th and final rock comet in the game. There are 30 Octumba enemies, and there are a few different ways I can kill them. Jump on them, spin attack them, or shoot them with the star bit and then hit them. And you're going to be seeing me use a variety of 3, but for the most part I'm going to be using the star bit because it loses. This is a star that heavily requires the ability to multitask, because there's a lot of things you gotta do while you're... How this go? I actually ran out of star. I didn't see that. And here you get Yoshi, and the nice thing about Yoshi, you can actually... That was actually a really good flashback, huh? It's really, really hard to get a clean run of that star. So that's 70 stars, which means now we finally have enough to move on to the final level of the run, Bowser's Galaxy Generator. And before we do that, though, we have one of the hardest skips in the entire run. So on that space before a Galaxy Generator, there's normally like this 35-second cutscene that's supposed to play where Lava tells you it's like battle. But that's totally optional. So you didn't even realize it, but I just saved 30 just by clicking on the overall Galaxy Generator space on the map instead of... It just skips the cutscene. Yeah, that's called Purple Idiot Skip. This is Bowser's Galaxy. This is a really, really final. Got great music, a lot of really challenging tricks, and really tough. So first we got a lava wall boost here. This one isn't as difficult to do as the one we got there. And that actually just skips having to kill someone's hammer, like right flower all the way. And right here, once I finish drilling through here, I want to immediately take damage here so I can drill. Be able to jump. Allow me to... And then this cylinder planet is a planet where there's a lot of moving elevators this cycle. Getting through here. And then we have cloud moments. Go. And now we have not necessarily the craziest infinite flutter in the run, but it's certainly up there. So once I get on Yoshi here, I'm basically just going to do 2 different infinite flutters to skip the level. Due to these times I hold on, I actually have to do parts. So this first infinite flutter here, I'm getting from here all the way to the top. And then the last infinite flutter is all the way. This infinite flutter actually. to be careful with your height during that flutter, because if you go too high, you enter the gravity field of a pre-minute, and you actually soft lock them. This is like 2 minutes. That flutter was basically perfect. Now we're on to the final fight. So, the final fight is... I wouldn't say it's the worst late game run ender here, but it's not free. Especially when you have little to spare. So Bowser goes back to dropping freezers here. The difference is that he is a lot quicker to pull out his punches in this fight, which means you have less time to make decisions. And that can kind of make or break whether or not it's a hit. So, again, on this first hit, I'm actually going to be going for another punch cancel. Or Bowser punches twice here. And you can see there, that was way, way quicker. So once again, I'm just going to wait for Bowser to conjure up his punch attack. And then ground pound the meteor into him. So here's another thing that's great about this fight. So Bowser's shell can actually deflect meteors, and it seems like the shell's hitbox grows with every fight. So it could look like a hit would work on one of the earlier fights, but it just bounces off the shell and yeah, due time. Annoying whenever that happens, but as long as you have good aim, pretty much. But now we're at the hardest part of the fight. Because for the third and fourth hits, Bowser is way quicker to pull out his punches. You basically have to react. Just hope that Bowser. Okay, I'm very lucky Bowser. You're out of the screw. He's got hit here. And there we go. So, there we go. Bowser's totally dead. And at this
now,
point,
that's not time, or is it with the
we'll
the
see,
242nd?
We'll see.
Okay. All right.
We'll see. You know.
Curious. I'm curious.
Because, you know, here comes the star, you know, it's right there.
Yeah, the star is just...
touching it.
Yeah.
Run ends. Get ready on time. And jebaited.
What?
Yeah, there's one more phase to this fight, and you
No.
can't skip it.
We got baited. No. I was so sure it was the end.
And not only that is ridiculously pathetic. You basically just hit Bowser 4 times and it's done in like 25 seconds. Also, Bowser's one attack drops in per lane, so it's literally, it's like impossible to die. Which, it kind of sucks, because this is like one of the most epic songs. And there we go. So now time is actually coming. That's not it. So it'll be... I'll just say when I touch the Grand Star here, but it's technically when the cutscene starts, but just get ready for it. This was a rather interesting run, I'll give it that. I made a lot of interesting mistakes. I think I still put on a pretty decent showing.
God, you did great. It was a lot of fun to watch, for sure. As somebody who's seen this for the first time, that was quite the experience.
Yeah, so this is going to be like, I think exactly 4 minutes off my PB. My PB is 3 hours and 31 seconds. The world record is 2:58:22 by Hardcore Gaming. Definitely check him out. There's a lot. Him and Mr. Cocker have been pushing. Check both. And also, I will be aiming for sub 3 on my own. So, by the way, time. So, my timer says 3:04:31. So, I will be pushing for a sub 3 of my own over the next coming week. So, yeah, definitely be on the lookout for that. But we're not done yet, because we still have to do the perfect run.
We hit the incentive. So yeah, let's get that done.
You can go ahead and keep the final time on. So in case you didn't miss, so I don't exactly have 6.5 hours to play through the rest of the game. 202nd star. So we're just going to do it on a complete file. And
okay. I was curious.
And yeah, the perfect run is a challenge obstacle course. It's a daredevil comet where you have to make it through the entire star without getting hit, or else you get sent all the way back to the very beginning of the level. And this star, let's just say it's had some pretty crazy development that I'm hopefully it can show off.
And we're playing as Luigi.
Yeah, but it's not really gonna.
Okay.
Oh.
I was curious when I saw it. I was like, "Well, wait a minute. We're not our usual Mario."
So I mentioned before how there's a 10-second cooldown to flutters and all that, and there's a few different ways to reset it. There's actually another way you can reset it, and it allows for one of the. This is probably the craziest infinite flutter in the entire run, and it's also one of the hardest. Hopefully I can pull this off. Okay, nice. So, what I did there, I dismounted Yoshi and then remounted him, and that also resets the 10-second timer. So I didn't do it quite optimally there, but that can allow you to make it to the end of this section a little bit quicker. But not only that, I can also keep Yoshi for the rest of this star, which will allow me to use even more infinite fluttering throughout this star. Unfortunately, I still cannot get hit, or else I die. So, let's see what I can do here.
And we're in. So I think from this point, like you said, we're in the very slow infinite fluttering into the star bit. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's so
even
terrible.
With that dismount and remount, it still doesn't give you quite enough.
Mm-hmm. And big thanks to Footing Azure for the raid. Thank you very much. We're in the final incentive portion of the Super Mario Galaxy 2 run, so thanks for joining us. This level is extremely tough and looks like something I could never do myself, so...
Yeah, I want to give a huge shout-outs to Nemi43, who's the current world record holder for this game, who actually found this tech and has an IL world record for the perfect run with that remount strat. The IL world record is under 2 minutes.
Under 2 minutes, okay. Yeah. This seems like an absolute nightmare. Oh my goodness.
And it's probably the craziest IL of this game to date, so definitely go check it out. Uh-oh. So I only have to kill the 3 boomerang run. That wasn't perfect, but we'll take it. And there we go. That is the perfect run with Yoshi.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's that was so stressful to watch.
There's a 1 up there.
Yeah. That was absolutely.
I think that's the first time that's ever been shown off in a marathon.
Hey, well, we're happy to be the first. So, wow, thank you so much, Viper. That was an amazing run. 3 hours of, honestly, to what seemed like to me, you said it was going to have lots of downtime, and there was mostly just you talking and constantly explaining strats as we went. So, you know, hey.
Yeah, this is a game I've been really passionate about for the past few years. So if you do want to learn this game, definitely join the community Discord. We have been working on creating a lot of resources for new runners, and there's been an insane amount of competition in both Galaxy games lately. So check out all the top runners, follow us all, and yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, amazing.